Well, thank you for joining us. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little more about yourself and your background?
Okay, my name is Charlotte Brennan, and I was the, I guess you would say, founding librarian of Yavapai College, and I came on staff in 69, I think. And when I started working, it was July. There was no library, there were no buildings. They were still digging and constructing the buildings. So I worked for a while in what was the Pioneer Bank downtown, where they had the administrative offices. And they had already purchased all the books for the library because they were ordered through a firm that just had a complete library. So I had nothing to do because I had spent all the money already for that year, and I didn't have the books because they were all packaged away in the basement. And so I just kind of sat around and made out little cards of books that I thought we should order in another year. And we moved into the buildings, I think it was April 1st, the following April 1st. And it was pouring down rain. And we were putting the books in the library, and the library was leaking all over the place. We had to put waste baskets around and everything, and that library never did stop leaking. So that was the introduction. Then we put the books on the shelves, and they looked so empty. You know, we have way more shelves than books, so that was kind of the beginning.
So what attracted you to Yavapai College in the first place?
Well, first I wanted to leave the job I had. I was running a technical processing center, and all we did was catalog and prepared books for some high school libraries. And my parents were moving to Scottsdale, and I came out and visited, and I thought, oh, I think I could like this. So I applied for the job here and talked to Dr. Barnes, who was then the president, and went back to my job and signed a contract there and was working away, and all of a sudden he called me one day and offered me the job. And I said, well, I've already signed a contract. I have to see about that. So we negotiated a little bit, but I did decide to come out here. And with my two sons, who were 4 and 5, or 3 and 5, they were pretty young, and started working.
Now, when did the library finally move to this campus, to the Prescott campus?
I think it was in April of, now I'm not positive, you may have to check this out, but I think it was April of 70.
Was the library still leaking?
Well, that's when it was brand new.
Oh, right.
It started leaking right away because it had the flagstone outside balcony, and the flagstone leaked when the rain came in on it, so it came right through our ceiling.
Yeah. Were you here during any transitions, say, of administration?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes, when I started, Dr. Barnes was the president, and Ray Cleveland was the, I think he was dean of instruction. And he left before the first year was out. Dr. Barnes stayed a couple years, and then he was followed by a man who had been teaching at NAU. Oh, the names. I can see his face. I can't remember his name. Well, anyway, we've had several. And that most of them lasted just a couple of years, and then it was a lot of politics going on in the college.
Now, how did that affect your work? Did the rules change? Were there any major changes due to the transitions of presidents or administrators?
Gradually. I can't think of any big ones that any one administrator did. But, you know, I was always in there pushing for the library and trying to get more money for the library and, you know, and more shelves. And we did, under, I can't remember what president it was, get a big edition put on the library. And one of the English teachers came in and said, well, now this place really looks like a library. You know, so it's kind of nice. And that was the way it stayed until I retired. And then just before I retired, I talked to the architects about the need for a library to be on the lower level because so many people from town used it. And they had never anticipated that when they planned the campus, so that library was up on top of a hill for the students to use. But the townspeople, I mean, they've just almost overwhelmed us. They just loved the library, the books, and most of our patrons were townspeople.
You know, most people don't know exactly when you say up on the hill which location it was. Could you tell us which building that was?
It was Building 3. It was on the ground floor of Building 3.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where it stayed until they built this one.
Well, so where was the cafeteria?
Well, the cafeteria was over on the top of Building 1, and that was a student recreation area and cafeteria, and the faculty lounge were all over there. The counseling, the bookstore, things like that. Yeah. I probably couldn't even find any of those things now.
We'll give you a map.
Okay.
Tell us about your experience here, your time here, other than with the library. Say with the staff, and did you take any classes? Were you involved in any extracurricular activities?
I did take classes. I took the main ones that I remember taking. I took genealogy. I had some friends on the staff that were into genealogy in a big way, and they kept trying to get me interested. And I said, no, you just want me to buy genealogy books. And so I'm not interested because, you know, that isn't anything we teach. Well, they did get a teacher that taught, and so I finally took one of her classes, and I did get interested in it. So we started a genealogy collection to go along with that. And we also, each librarian here had different interests, you know, the different people on the staff, so we kind of divided up the staff areas of book ordering, and Jim was interested in architecture and art and a lot of things. He did a lot of book ordering. I was interested in genealogy, history, and literature, and gardening. So, and then, you know, Molly did the periodicals, and we just all kind of divided up the different areas, and then they all came through me, and we ordered books, and we had the administration was very good about the library budget, and so we always had a good budget for books.
Right.
Yes, it was wonderful. That was really good support there.
May you have had, maybe any complaints then that you think may have been solved now with the new library? Would like to see how this has evolved.
Well, the main thing is the location. You know, I mean, the location now is perfect, but the location then was really hard to get to, and you know, people had to go up all those stairs to get to it, and that was very difficult. But they did it somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the filling of the shelves?
Well, the shelves I did manage to fill them up. That's why we had to add on to the library. And then we took up space for computers too. And I think we budgeted money for a security system, and then I changed my mind just after the money had been allocated, and said I would like to change it and get some computers. So we got, I think it was 10 computers, and pushed some tables together and some printers and stuff like that, and they were immediately 100% in use. Yeah.
How did you manage to coordinate the needs of the different departments so the students would have the books available to them?
In the early years, I used to send out, I subscribed to something that sent little 3x5 forms that described books and what areas they were in. And I used to send them to the different departments or the teachers that were in that area, and they would, send back the ones they were interested in. And after a while, we just started ordering because we kind of knew where their interests, lay. So we just started ordering for them, because some of them just never did return anything. But we knew what they were interested in, so we could order the books too. And then another thing that happened that was really good in Prescott was the local librarians formed a group. The school librarians, the public librarians, and eventually Embry-Riddle, and we formed a kind of a coalition. And we met and then started a network, a computer network. And my theory was that everybody would have access to more books if we put them all on one database. So we did that gradually, and we were funded for it. Like I said, they always funded us well for it. The county put in money, and the schools put in money, and right now the library network is county-wide. That's all the libraries in the county. I think all of them. I don't think there are many that aren't in it. And we provided a courier that went around from library to library. So if you lived in Sedona and saw a book that you wanted that was here, the courier would take it on his route to Sedona. Because the courier had class, there were classes in all those places, so he went there every day anyway.
Right.
Yeah, so it turned out to be that people had access to so many thousands more books than they would have otherwise. So that was, I think the biggest thing. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which year was this? Would you remember?
Ooh, I'd have to look it up. It took over several years.
Because I knew I have used the network myself. I just had no idea that when the school started, they didn't have this, and now I'm realizing that these were part of the improvements.
Oh yeah, we were.
How long ago?
Yeah, maybe it was 10 or 15 years before we had that. But it was kind of a brainstorm, and Charmin Gertis was the public librarian, and I was here, and the two of us put this together and thought this would be a good idea. So she went to the county and got some money, and I got some money from the college, and some of the I don't know when the schools got into it, but it just grew.
Wow.
It just grew. Eventually I had enough money to buy a bigger, newer computer for the central system.
Right.
So I think that that's something that has really paid off for students and for townspeople all over the county.
Yes, because everyone uses it.
Mm-hmm.
What about now that you're retired? How do you feel about it? Are there any improvements that you feel would be helpful? Because I'm sure, given your contribution, there might be a few things that you might have seen in other libraries that would actually be of great use right now.
Well, I have to make a confession. I'm not a big library user. I'm still in the mode of buying books, so I buy books for myself. And if I want a book, I buy it.
In other words, you have a personal library that's big enough to accommodate your needs.
I know that sounds peculiar. When I was here, I used it all the time, of course, because it was my library. But now my library is at home.
Right.
So I don't know if all librarians are like that or not. But this is the only the second time I've been in this library.
Oh wow.
Yeah. She and Leslie invited me when just before they opened to come and see it, and I was very impressed. I was excited to see what it had grown into.
Could you relate to the students that attended the school, say back in the days, the ones who attended years later, and how they made good use of the library? What type of students were there then, and do you think that now they use more computers than books? How do you think this has changed throughout the years?
Oh, it's changed tremendously. You know, we did depend heavily on books at the beginning.
Right.
But when the computers came in and the internet came in, and we drove the computer services crazy, always wanting, you know, to upgrade to something bigger and better, and the students really just took to it right away. It isn't that they didn't use books anymore, but I think they found information easier.
On the computers?
Well, and they found the books that the information was in on the computers. The computer led them to the books that had the information.
Oh, right.
So, yeah.
That's great. What kind of environment, how do you think the environment has changed, though, say, leave alone with the structuring? Because I was told that before they had the lights, it was kind of hard to get into the college, or the differences in buildings.
Hard to get into the college.
Right, like the main lights at the entrance of the college.
Oh.
They didn't have those, and they're
the street lights.
The street lights.
Yeah, oh, yeah. It was weird. Took our lives in our hands every time we turned left out there to drive in, because there was no stopping the traffic. So,
wow,
it was interesting. Yeah.
Yes. Are there any other changes that you might remember that truly made a difference to the college or to the convenience of the students or the staff?
Well, there were so many. The curriculum changed, you know, as interests evolved among students, and so the curriculum changed. So we had to constantly keep up with that.
What do you mean by the curriculum change? I'm sorry.
Well, they added programs like construction,
right,
and agriculture, some stuff there. They started out with agriculture, dropped it, and then years later, you know, went back to it.
Changes do you recall from your time being here? I know we just talked about the changes in the English department, the changes in the curriculum. Are there any other changes that you might be able to recall?
Gosh, probably if I really, you know, set my mind to it, but offhand it's a little difficult to,
right,
yeah, to just pick them up. But I would say one thing about the college, it was always evolving, and you know, people who had ideas and were able to get someone to listen, and groups maybe to get involved and get things started, and sometimes money was a factor, and it took a while, but the college was very good that way.
Well, I know that in these years we have a concern on the environment and going green and planting more trees, and I see a lot of improvements outside on creating more recreational area where people can sit and chat. How was it back in the day? Did they have trees? Was that something that's very recent?
Well, I remember the first Earth Day. And they planted a tree, but I don't know when that was, what year that was. But yeah, it seemed to always be kind of an interest with students. Much more now, I'm sure, than it was then. But they did plant a tree for Earth Day.
I've seen the recreational area. I'm not sure how it was with the smoking too. Do you remember? Because I know that the laws of not smoking are very recent. Were people allowed to smoke in the buildings then? Is that something recent? That
faculty could smoke in the offices, and I think students could smoke in the hallways until I think the college actually changed before the city law changed. And then every time you'd go out a door, you'd walk through a lot of smoke, because they were all smoking outside, all the smokers.
Yes. But it was still acceptable to actually smoke in the hallways. That's interesting.
No, outside.
Just outside?
Yeah, on the outside, on the perimeter of the building, on the flagstone. I don't think there was any smoking once they started that in the building at all. And then you couldn't smoke in offices or the faculty lounge or anything either.
Would you remember any other laws that may have changed the way students had to behave, or the faculty in this case?
Well, the dress code was the first big issue, and probably the one that stands out the most.
When you say dress code, could you elaborate more on that?
Well, the dress code was that women had to wear dresses, and I don't know that whether it applied, whether anything applied to men or not. I don't think so. But anyway, women had to wear dresses, and they could not wear pantsuits or Levi's or anything like that. And so that started the biggest rebellion, the first big rebellion among the students.
Were there dorms?
Yes.
As you can call?
Two dorms, Yavapai and Supai.
Right.
Mm-hmm. In fact, before we got into the library, we also had offices in the dorms because the buildings weren't ready.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did the students use them back in the days?
No.
Students from the dorms?
The students were housed over at the VA, many of them, and some of them rented rooms and things like that. And the faculty taught all over town, wherever they could find spaces. They taught in the basement of the Congregational Church. They taught over at Whipple at the Veterans Administration, wherever there was a space. And all kinds of groups that had meeting rooms and stuff, helped us out. So we were all over town.
Would you remember how the college finally moved to this location? Because I know I've heard a number of stories of what the land was used for before this, who owned it. Do you have any recollection about that?
Well, we have, in our archives, we have pictures of that this was part of Whipple, Fort Whipple, and where the Rough Riders trained, and the gates out there I think they're still out there, were historical for that reason. And then I don't know how the land came to the college. I don't remember that because I wasn't here then. But the town wanted the college and supported it from the beginning.
So in other words, it was donated by the town?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The town or the, I don't know, whether it was still part of the Veterans Administration or what.
Right. I also know that, did they have enough parking? Because I know they've recently increased the parking lots because the community uses the college. We have students staying in the dorms. They had to increase the parking spaces. How was the parking back in the day?
It was tough.
Really?
It was very tough, yeah. I didn't have so much of a problem because I had to be here early. But during the day, if you came in at 10, 11 o'clock or 1 in the afternoon, you couldn't find a parking place without just driving around and looking for it. It was much smaller than the parking lots. Now I can't even find my way around in the parking lots. They've changed them so much.
Right. What about the performance hall? Do they have as many activities? Because I saw that their schedule is always full of...
We didn't have one.
How?
We didn't have one. That was...
That's quite a recent idea.
That was about the third president. Actually, it might have been about the same time they enlarged the library that they built the performance hall. Dr. Walker was a musician and a conductor, and he really pushed for and got the performance hall. But before then, we just used big classrooms for things, and they weren't big enough for a lot of things.
Performances,
Mm-hmm.
right.
So we would use things in town like Hendricks Auditorium, which was over at the junior high school, and some of the churches would let us use their space.
What about graduation? What spaces were used for graduation?
The gymnasium.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was gymnasium.
Sounds like there's been great changes.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, back in the olden days.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are there anything? What about your experiences? Tell us a little more about personally, other than the library, but as an individual, your interaction with your colleagues, the people you worked with. Do you remember the people you worked with? Or are you still in touch with the people you worked with?
Not so much anymore, but it was for a while. We a bunch of the faculty women used to get together for lunch, and that's kind of died off now. But I do see people on a regular basis that were here then, but nothing formal.
When you say get together, was that at the cafeteria or lunchroom? Were there?
No, we'd go to a restaurant for lunch. So the librarians did that from the beginning. All the town librarians and school librarians and us. And then when Embry Riddle came in, we just met regularly. Then we stopped meeting for lunch and had real meetings because we got into the computer situation. As for the faculty, we socialized together quite a bit. And at that time, and I don't know if this is still true, the town was that way. The lawyers were socialized with the lawyers, and the doctors socialized with the doctors, The school teachers socialized with the school teachers. And so, anyway, that's pretty much broken down because it's just a different community now.
Was there a lot of diversity in the students who came here? Did the students from different countries also interact with the students from their own countries? Is that how it worked?
Well, not in the beginning. They were all local, pretty much, except for Native Americans who came from, say, the Navajo tribe or the Hopi tribe were probably the farthest of anybody. And then there are a few students from Phoenix area, but not really foreign students until the Arabians came. It's the big invasion, and there were quite a few of them because they couldn't pass the English test for the colleges, so they had to come here and learn English before they could go to other colleges.
Oh, quite an improvement. What else would you remember about the students starting to come in from other countries? Are there laws in the country that had changed that allowed that to happen or facilitated it? Are there changes in the college, say administrative-wise, that allowed them to be able to have access to information about the college?
Not that I know of. I suspect there's more nowadays. See, I've been gone 10 years, and we did have some students from other countries, but they were very much a minority.
Right. But that was not in any way facilitated by the change in administration, say an office that catered for them for that work?
It's just a matter of finding us, I think.
Okay. Or perhaps even financial-wise.
Yeah, it could be. I really don't know that much about it. We had counselors who talked to people, showed them around, and but I do think they went out and did some recruiting, but they mostly in-state.
Right.
Yeah.
Was there an international student affairs department in the days? Would you recall?
I think there was. I don't really recall. No. Yeah. No. It was very local.
Right.
For a long time.
How did the culture then, do you think, affect those new students who were totally new to the culture, to the language? How do you think, what kind of environment do you think was present at the time? Were people very welcoming, or did they feel more like...
It depended on the individual.
Right.
Some people really were welcoming, and others just didn't want to make the effort. But I think on the whole they were treated well. I don't know whether they became close to each other at first. 'Cause I saw the students from a different in a different way than the faculty did. The faculty probably was more aware of stuff like that. I was aware of who wanted the big yellow book, or where the stuff on religion was and that sort of thing. So I helped them as individuals and not as social groups.
How big was the town? I'm curious. Back in the days, because I'm sure that affected the population at this campus. As
I think it was about
grew.
10,000.
Right.
But I'm just kind of guessing at that. You could look at some old papers and see that, but it was pretty small.
Did it reflect on the college? Say, as the town grew and there were more people interested in education or in taking classes.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah, and then they had Elder Hostel, which brought in a lot of senior citizens from all over too, and that because they were interested in the Native American programs, and they would go up on the mesas and just to the Hopi Reservation and the Navajo Reservation and learn about them. So that was really of interest to the senior citizens.
Right, that's because the tribes are close by, right?
Well, relatively speaking, yeah. In Arizona, for Arizona distance, they're close.
So was there a large population of Native Americans then?
Was there?
Was there?
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few. And then, of course, there's the Yavapai tribe right here at Prescott, so.
Yeah.
And then Clarkdale, too. But it seemed to me that we had a lot of Navajo in those early years.
Wow. Well, that's all I had for now. So I'd like to thank you so much
you're
for
welcome.
being part of this program.
You're welcome. I'm happy to do it.